So, today we are going to discuss something that not many people have had the pleasure of looking into. Antigravitics, levitation, particle manipulation, and dimensional time travel. These are all phenomena of the Hutchinson effect. Let's take an in-depth look into this so we may come to a better understanding of what is actually possible. Many of the experiments that have been done are not really new, as many of us are well aware that people such as Tesla were performing experiments of this nature back in the early 1900s. Let the Philadelphia experiment stand as an example of what I'm going to talk about here. This is another thing that is not getting the attention it deserves. Everyone should know about this and have a basic understanding of it, so that you are all well aware of what is real and what can be done. So let us get into this Hutchinson effect and the true magic of frequency. This is John Hutchinson, born 1945, a Canadian inventor who has lived a quite active lifestyle in the field of alternative energy devices, life extension, machinery. He has been featured in over 300 television broadcasts and over 1,000 radio shows. By 1970, John opened a gun museum in North Vancouver, Canada, leading to several gun control cases in which he eventually won in 1979. And as a result, the Canadian gun control laws were changed. Now, John is considered a Nikola Tesla expert, and he discovered what is known as the Hutchinson effect by 1980. This all came about during the powering up of some high voltage equipment when he noticed a piece of metal had flew up and hit him. From that point on, he knew that frequencies were capable of manipulating gravity. Using Tesla coils, an electrostatic generator, some magnets, radar, and other salvaged equipment, he was able to generate electromagnetic fields that could levitate metal and even alter its crystalline structure. This is something that was promoted to the U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command by George Hathaway, and the phenomena came to be known as the Hutchinson effect. So what are we talking about here? Well, no one really knows. There are theories about electrostatic, certain electromagnetic fields canceling each other out. Some believe, including John himself, that this is the results of manipulating space-time, as objects have been observed vanishing and then reappearing. And so then comes in the theory of tapping into extra dimensions. Watch the pendulum closely. Now, when it comes to something of this nature, you would have to assume that the government, being aware of your experiment and findings, would want to step in, and they did, attempting to acquire all replicated Tesla technology and making it very difficult for John to continue his work without them. So he took his work on tour to countries such as the US, Japan, and Germany. At this point in time, I'm very sure that the government has all the information they need from John Hutchinson, and I bet they already had that information via Nikola Tesla, probably investigating how much John actually understood about the technology. And many agencies did not mind paying John if he would work with them on this technology for only God knows what. Agencies such as NASA. So what has John been able to do with this technology? Well, using these fields, he has been able to levitate objects such as a bowling ball, Metal tools, liquids, plastic containers have collapsed in on themselves. He has been able to warp a variety of metal objects, and the effects do not seem to be localized, as John has mentioned that at one time, these fields affected a utility pole outside his lab, causing it to sway back and forth. Now, John is not convinced that what is happening are the effects of electromagnetic energy, but zero-point energy, which is the energy that remains once all other energy is removed. Hendrik Kashmir began analyzing zero-point energy back in 1947. He took two conducting parallel plates. At 0 Kelvin, the outside pressure and the force between the two plates changes, causing the plates to come together, somewhat of a vacuum effect. Once the plates come in contact with each other, the forces stop working. The idea here is that there is a sea of zero-point energy in the universe, and it may be possible to extract this energy and heat from the vacuum via the Kashmir force. And Hutchinson believes that this zero-point energy can be used to power massively large areas with a high energy output from a low energy source. Now, John says himself that with the proper funding and the clearance of the government, he could be in production of power cells that use zero-point energy to power such things as homes and automobiles, not to mention the matter manipulation technology, the levitation, the warping and disappearance of materials. This technology in a device that could be commercialized and mass-produced will never see the light of day. The military's vision of this technology is propulsion systems that could allow interdimensional travel and power advanced weaponry with the same technology. What could you do to the structural integrity of, let's say, a tower if you immerse it in these Hutchinson fields, a direct energy weapon? Well, it could probably weaken and shred the entire structure, right? John tells the story of how a friend of his witnessed the vanishing of an entire building during a Hutchinson experiment, the same type as the Philadelphia experiment. In fact, John has replicated that experiment several times using a scale model ship and a tub of water, creating standing waves that cause the water to levitate. Now, what's interesting about the Hutchinson effect and the World Trade Towers is, first of all these things that I have discussed are very real. John Hutchinson is real, the videos are real, the testimony by other scientists in the military is real. This effect works, and I am very certain that they know how to make it work at their leisure. I want to bring your attention to Dr. Judy Wood when it comes to the trade towers and the Hutchinson effect. But before we get into that, think about this. I think most of us have seen the aftermath of the World Trade Towers collapse, Ground Zero. Let me ask you all something. Where is the rest of the building? Now, if you've ever been to New York City, or even if you've visited the towers, you know buildings of that massive size should have left behind a heck of a lot more of a mess than what was observed. There should be a mountain of rubble. And that always seems strange to me, among other things. You should not have a building, two buildings of that magnitude, fall to the ground extremely fast, I might add, and not bust up or even blow apart and flood every other building around it, up to a certain radius. This isn't a photo taken after they cleaned everything up. No, this is what was left. Just something to think about. Anyway, Dr. Judy Wood seems to understand this. What Dr. Wood suggests is that what was witnessed on 9/11 were two buildings turning into dust in midair. Go watch her explain this in detail. For example, if you are in a building of that height and you are on one of the top floors, imagine sitting there at your desk. What would you do if the floors and ceilings begin to turn into dust before your eyes? Starting from the center, expanding out towards the windows. I would assume that you would head away from the forming dust towards the windows to the point where you are not voluntarily jumping out of a window, but being forced out. This is an indication of the buildings disintegrating from the inside out. And they didn't find everyone. What happened to over 1,500 souls? Where is all the glass, the steel, the plumbing? Where is all the concrete, the office equipment, electronics, wires, computers, chairs, refrigerators, toilets, sinks? Where are the pillars? You know what's underneath the trade center? The parking garage. Apparently, the parking garage was empty, not caved in, empty. Over 1 million tons worth of building material. Where is it? I mean, the Empire State Building is 365,000 tons. These were two 500,000 ton buildings. Now, Tesla patented a death ray, and John Hutchinson was able to replicate it. But it is not a death ray in the sense of a ray of energy that can destroy on contact, no. What the death ray actually is, it's a portal gun, a teleportation device, a transmitter that could take energy from a source, such as a bomb, and transmit that energy to your desired location. It's bombing by radio. It is the same tech used to create wireless power.
Which is this very large, heavy steel bar. As you can see here, the crumbling material here is off the end of this bar here. And actually it's a transmuted material that is unknown in the metallurgical handbooks. And this particular sample has been to Germany, in the United States National Laboratories, also in Japan and other locations, and extremely rare material that appears to be a major transmutation. Now, getting into another sample here, we find a heavy piece of what they call extruded brass that exploded with inside itself, ripping it into this pattern here, ripping it apart. Very heavy, dense material. This is another time frame of about 1987, 88. Coming to this sample here of aluminum, we find that something wanted to get outside of the metal itself. And looking at it, you can see that the pressures inside of it indeed tried to get out. And going to samples that have other samples sitting on top of them, we have here a knife that was on a sample that got itself embedded into the sample. And apparently some type of transparency perhaps did happen. This particular sample was anchored down and a machine was given to shave off the top layer of aluminum to get to this level here. This is extrusion alloy, not cast aluminium. And if you observe very carefully, there's a shadow of the knife itself embedded in the metal here on the back. Well, that's a stainless steel kitchen knife embedded in a piece of extruded alloy. We get to a piece of, again, extrusion with a piece of wood inside that has actually came up several times in various samples analyzed in Germany and at the national laboratories. Wood mixed in with the structure itself. We're not sure exactly on this sample how much wood, maybe a cubic inch or more inside here. And coming to other samples, we find again samples that have ripped themselves apart and rejoined, as you can see in this little sample here. And then we come to breaks that indicate actually a lot of stress, as it's a nice clean cut and looks like a bent stress. So this is broken in a fashion perhaps like that. And then on the other side of the coin, we come to something that looks like it was ripped apart or turned to jelly and ripped apart and frozen in time and space. This large aluminum sample, again extrusion alloy, was once one piece and was totally formed like this after some experiments, actually seen on video. we come to more hard materials such as stainless steel that are just bent and twisted around. There's a lot of little pot marks and pieces falling out of it. Again, similar to the large piece of steel that I just mentioned, for being the very first sample. And this is just many samples that I do have and that other people do have that still are undergoing analysis around the world.
Whatever is held in the dark, folks, usually comes to the light. I'm going to continue to make efforts to tie things in together and dig deep to provide you all with leads into what I feel is valuable information. Do directed energy weapons exist? Oh, you better believe they do. And let us pray that when the time comes, when all hope for mankind is lost, this tech is used to not hurt us, but to save us. But then again, it is only a question of the price we may have to pay for that.